Hello, everyone. Today we are here for another episode of Dev2Be, and as always, we have our honorable guest here, and this time it's Rich Ross, and we are really glad to have you here, Rich. Rich is a technological architect at Microsoft Technology Center in Philadelphia, and there is so much to his story that I would personally recommend telling him about his story itself. And yeah, I'm really glad to have you here, Rich.
Awesome. I'm very happy to be here. This is a lot of, looking forward to a lot of fun discussion here. So this will be great.
Okay. So we are going to ask you a little bit of cliche questions about your life, maybe a little bit of nostalgia for you as well. So we started about your backgrounds and how you have worked in the technological industry, and so we saw that initially you have done your college degree in biology, and then you transitioned to technology, and that was something we are very interested to know. And how did that happen?
Yeah, definitely. So not a conventional background for somebody in the technology space. Both my degrees are in science. I have an undergrad in biology, master in microbiology. Thought I was going to be a doctor and go down the medical path. And I actually spent the first 10 years of my life doing research in the labs and then ultimately in clinical trials up through the various processes that happen on the business side of that. But all along through that, I was interested in technology. In the lab, we had a computer that was part of a grant that my doctor that I was working for received. So it was like, well, what are we going to do with this? He says, well, what do you want to do with this? So we opened it up. We started playing around with it, used it to kind of track all the information we had in the lab as far as the tests we ran and the results from those. So having that ability and that capability to just, what do we want to do with it and have access to something like that was what really kind of kickstarted that technology side of things for me. And then all along throughout the clinical trial process, I was always playing around with databases and spreadsheets and things that we needed to do the running of the business, things that we might do today in Power Apps, right? Those are the business kind of applications that are the applications that the business teams might write because they just needed to do the running of the business. So was running through, doing all of those throughout the course of that 10 years that I was in the clinical trial space. And finally I got to the end of a run of working on a project in the IT world as a business liaison, as the business representative or a SME on a project, a subject matter expert. And I got to the end of that and I finally said to the guys, look, I'm having more fun doing technology. How do I move over? How do I get to do what you guys are doing? And they kind of had their eye on me anyway, because some of those apps that I wrote were access apps that they were now having to start to be aware of and maybe in some cases maintain. So they thought it was kind of better if I went over to the other side of the fence. So I did a transition and it was kind of nice. They were really great about how I did it in that they needed someone who understood the business but also had an understanding of technology and could kind of be that liaison and make that conversation happen between both groups. And I think that is something that has continued, especially as I spend a lot of time talking to customers who are in the healthcare space, pharma, provider, payer spaces mostly, and being able to have that conversation with them and not have them need to translate that language to me so that I understand the business process.
Easier conversations.
Exactly. And I think that's crucial. It's one of those things where if you're looking at your, whether it's, right now we're focused on industry, things like retail or manufacturing, what have you, what one of those industries might you be interested in and be able to use that as a way to really get focused on that from a domain perspective and then bring your technology to bear to continue that conversation with the customer, because that's really helpful.
Oh, that's one story, because you have like that. From that, I can conclude is you have been a technologist by heart for forever, I guess, because when you saw a PC around in the lab and then you just wanted to know about it and explore of how things will happen in it. So yeah, that's great. So what do you think that is the next thing in the pharma or the healthcare industry? Like you mentioned, you have conversations with people who are in this background.
Yeah, I think one of the of all the technologies where I really want to see this kind of take off is kind of the augmented reality and the mixed reality space that we have when you think of what we're doing with HoloLens, or even with what we're doing around some of the spatial anchors or object anchors that we recently talked about at Ignite. I think the idea of getting the digital information as close to the patient as possible and being able to understand and overlay that information in real time or in near real time is super important for the care of a patient. I also think having that ability to do, especially where we are now with COVID and pandemic, being able to do remote care and being able to do telemedicine, and HoloLens is one of those capabilities that you have of being able to bring that technology to bear, and not have the whole team of physicians in the room, but maybe just one physician in the room and relaying to a whole team behind the scenes. So I think those kind of technologies are where we're kind of just at the cusp of what's possible from a medical perspective.
Yeah, that's quite an insight. And what do you think that you have had a number of projects in this field itself? So which one has been the most interesting one, if you want to share about it? Anything?
Most interesting project. I think the things that I've seen recently that are really interesting is when we put AI into that medical space. Haven't had a chance to play with it, but we've seen some demos of things we've done where you're able to kind of take that natural language processing of a conversation and be able to break that down into something that is, gets translated and captured as part of a medical record, or gets translated even in real time to help people who don't necessarily speak the same language, but still be able to communicate with each other in near real time. All of those capabilities, I think, are just, amazing projects that are certainly moving the bar forward, not only in healthcare, but even in a retail space. Walking into a foreign country, you can be able to talk to somebody in a coffee shop and be able to say, I want my grande latte in whatever language I'm comfortable with, and have them understand it. I think overlaying of AI in the consumer space is really important.
Yeah, sounds interesting. So you have written on your LinkedIn that you run Filthy.net Code Camp and biannual event for developers and businesses in the Mid-Atlantic areas. So what is it like? What is it about?
Yeah, so Code Camp is one of those events. It's a user-sponsored, or it's a community-sponsored event, and we have in the Philadelphia area. We're lucky to have a really great .NET community. So the local developers who are passionate about technology and passionate about .NET get together. Before we were all remote, we would get together twice a month, once for a lab, once for an actual hands-on, for a monthly meeting around various types of topics. Since then, the team has still done them virtually and has actually moved over to use our Teams platform to do that as a community, which is really interesting. So being able to have not only a place to run these events, but also have that community to be able to continue the conversation afterwards. So that user group twice a year would have a Code Camp style event, and those are basically, multiple tracks, multiple sessions where people come and present on various topics. Usually, it doesn't have to be in the .NET space, but definitely in a technology space. And it's a event where people just come and learn. And I think that's a really important thing that doesn't end even when your schooling is done and you moved on and you have your career, and especially in technology, right? The learning and the continual learning and keeping up to date with what's happening is something that we all need to do. It helps us grow as people, but it also helps us grow in our career as well. And I think that that thought process and being able to not only go and attend those events, but want to present at those events. I think those are an important sets of skills that, give you a little more comfort when you're talking to different people, and just being able to, when you know a topic well enough to present on it, then that's when you really understand it and know it. And I think that's, if for certain topics, you may want to get to that level. So I think those are things that, while Code Camp is, kind of a fun outlet for me, and I help and support that group from a location perspective and make sure that it runs. It certainly is a lot of fun to see not only the people who've been presenting forever, but the new people who come through and want to present for the first time, and just have them go through and do a session there. So it's definitely, and now that they're virtual, that might be an opportunity to kind of do it from wherever you are. So I think that's something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, that's quite great because, I've joined the MSLA community, the Microsoft Learn Ambassador community since April itself. And since then, I've tried learning so much, and I actually have learned a lot since that period of time to now. And starting this initiative, to learn things, starting to explain a topic, having sessions, workshops, learning from people. It's just when you're a part of community, you just learn a lot, and the part of sharing the knowledge makes you get more handy with what you know. So it's absolutely a part that being a part of a community makes you more better at what you are, no doubt. So what was the most struggling period in your technological career? Like, how did you overcome it? What was the struggle part?
I think the struggle for me, it's a great question, because I think the struggle for me was a little different in that I come from that different background, as I mentioned. And I think when I talk to other developers, other computer scientists, computer engineers, people who come from that background, I think there was a little bit of a small bit of language understanding, right? And the learning and the skills that they've kind of picked up and developed through the coursework, I hadn't had. I tried to, research and do a lot of things online and learn those capabilities, learn about different types of architecture, learn about different types of database creation, all of those things that you need to understand. So when you have a design discussion with customers, you're able to kind of talk the language that's needed from an IT perspective. So I think for me, that was the biggest challenge that I came across. I mean, there are always language challenges. JavaScript always seems to have some hidden, missing variable that comes back to haunt me later on. But I think for me, that was the biggest challenge and part of that was proving that, I belonged as part of that conversation with everybody else. We talk as developers about having that that inferiority complex that I don't belong here because everybody else is smarter than me. And I think getting past that technical challenge for me was one of those things to say, well, I can have that discussion. We can have that conversation, even though our backgrounds are different, and to kind of believe in yourself and believe in what you have and what you bring to the table. I think those are all challenges that we run into as technologists, but things that we can certainly, realize that we need to overcome because they're, everybody kind of experience, has that thought at least at some point. But
yeah, definitely there is. Even if the people with the same background have that thought, that people around here in the community are much more better than what I have right now as a knowledge or the tech stack. So yeah, that's totally a part that everyone faces. But you coming from the bio background and then switching up to technology, that's quite a courageous task, and you must have faced quite a few things in your head itself or maybe around. So yeah, that's quite courageous, a decision.
Thank you. Yeah, but it's one I haven't looked back on. So I love every, it's I think that every day is Christmas, in the job that I'm in, because it's always something different. It's always something new and interesting, and I have a blast doing what I've been doing. And I've been in this role for the last 5 years at Microsoft, and it's the best role I've ever had, quite honestly. So.
That's great, because we went through your profile and we saw like a number of companies listed, and you have worked in quite a few environments. So we had this question listed up, that how Microsoft has been a different part for you and how it has been working in Microsoft different from the others.
Yeah, no, great question. So I think a couple of things, and a couple of those things that for me, they resonate and are really important for me and what I want to do in a role. And I think biggest thing is the continual learning, the upskilling, the technology, making sure that certainly within the team within the MTC, but Microsoft all up, that we have the capabilities to continue to learn, to get certifications, to really be, the experts in the field when it comes to our technologies and services. And I think the capability to go and learn on a new technology, whether it's something that we just talked about that's still in preview, or something that has been around a little bit, and use those things to experiment and kind of go off and develop interesting ideas from those. For me, when bot technology kind of started, I worked with a colleague of mine, Ali, who you had on the show, I think last month, where
Yes.
we worked together on this bot, and it's something that we've continued to enhance and curate and modify over time. But I think that capability to go in a direction and use that type of technology, I think those are is kind of if I say 1 and 2, the learning, but then the ability to explore and just be creative and create are one of the 2 great things that I love about this role in this company. There's not something there was one brief 9-month period where I had something similar, and I've been looking for that same role ever since, and I'm happy I'm able to get back into it now that I'm here at Microsoft.
That's very great. So what do you think, you're talking about the pharma industry here and the current scenarios, we face COVID and things have totally changed for us. Like we have all gone virtual and things are quite, so what are the required changes that you think in the pharma industry? What should we think, pre-Mona thinking with, we should start thinking about things in this industry as well when it comes to technology, so that if something comes, God forbid, in the coming future, we are ready for it. So how do you think that it needs a change?
Oh wow, there's a lot to unpack in that question. I think the biggest place where change comes about is, my mind keeps going to change of how we work, right? We've kind of very quickly shifted into something that's been a remote type of capability. Everybody's got webcams. So I have a green screen in my place here, so I have the capability to kind of broadcast from wherever I am, because I want to recreate what we did in person. And I think that is kind of the biggest change that we're going to run into post all of this. Even when we do get back to a scenario where we may be able to go into an office, or we may be able to go and congregate with more than just a couple people together. I think those that remote capability and that remote way of working is something that not only I think individuals are embracing, for those who have the capabilities and the places to do it, but also industries are starting to do that as well. So where they can say, well, we don't need to have an office space because everybody's been doing fine working remotely, that mindset has kind of shifted. And I think that kind of goes a little bit to your question of, well, if we run into another one of these situations again, we're kind of, in we know how to kind of continue to work and be productive in that space, but also, we're not having large groups of people congregating in offices and those kind of things. I think some of the, I think for me, that's the biggest change. And that's one that some people embrace it because they can and they have the opportunity, and some people need to be in that office space for various reasons. And that's why I think that kind of a hybrid model of, people working one place versus another, working where you're most comfortable and most productive is what's really important. I think that also is part of that changing mechanism, right? Maybe not everybody working in the office cubes or the open space there, because for them that's a less productive space. So I think a lot more diversity in how we all work together and working together in the right way. I think those are some of the things, while they don't necessarily help us if something comes down the road, from a perspective, I think there are mechanisms in place, and we did see things coming. So I don't know that, obviously additional technologies will help identify those problems as they come on, if they should come again. But I think from the cultural and the working perspective, I think that's where the real change is going to be, and not just what we're doing, not just from the technologies we use to do that, but just generally accepting that that's how we kind of work now.
That's quite true. So in the end, I just want to ask you a few questions. Make it totally about you, something that you want to share with all of us, the community, and the new the our generation, the one who is stepping into the world where we are going to work. I'm in my final year, so I'll be working the next year. So what do you want to say? What's the advice, and what do you want to tell about yourself? Anything?
So I guess one of the biggest things is, wherever you are in your phase of your career, just follow your passion, right? There's no, just because you got a degree in this, or because you were trained in doing technology, or trained in writing programs. Over the, we live longer and longer lives, and we don't have to, be focused on one specific career, specific set of job requirements. Go where your interest is, and there's often something you can do. And then I think that the next adage to that is, find somebody who will pay you to do what it is that you're interested in doing. And usually there's somebody out there who can do that. I think that's most important, because if you do something that you absolutely truly enjoy, it doesn't feel like work, and you just love being there every day. But don't be afraid to realize where that opportunity is. Sometimes we get presented with a lot of different opportunities, and I think that's the being able to a little bit recognize it, but not be afraid to jump and take that chance. I mentioned that opportunity to kind of move from something that was very comfortable for me in talking to the business and being in the business side of the clinical trial space, and going to something completely foreign. But because I really thought that was a better path for me, I took that chance. And I think those kind of chances are the things, and those kind of opportunities are the things that you really take advantage of, that make for an interesting and a productive career.
Yeah, that's cool. So in the end, we have a few fire questions. So we want to make it's like a quick round, and you can answer the way you want to. It's general questions too, not so. How's life of the two college students different from today, for the today's eras to that in 80s? You graduated a while back, so you must have talked to the graduate students now. So what do you think is the major difference?
Between when I think there is a lot more when I talk to students now, because I have a daughter who's in her junior year in college. So it seems that there's a lot more focus. Difference from when I was there was that there's a lot more focus on interning, really getting out and being focused on a specific career, and knowing that up front. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't necessarily. It didn't necessarily mean that, when I got to senior year and graduated, that I was going down that path. I think for a lot, at least from what I understand, a lot of the push now is there's a definite path, and there's a definite structure to it. And if you deviate from the path, bad things happen, and I won't get to the end. And I don't. Again, I think that kind of goes to my thoughts around college. Is you have to get through and you get a degree, and then from there, you've got a degree. You can go anywhere you want, regardless of what major, what have you. As long as you have the ability and willingness to continue to learn, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. So I think that's kind of a bit of a difference, just from personally what I've seen in talking to kids who are, or young adults who are in that space versus when I was there. I also think there's a lot more pressure as well, or at least the sense that they feel a lot more pressure, and that I tend to have that conversation of it was kind of scary when I got to that point too, but there's always a way around it and a way through it. So I think those are some of the biggest differences. But
that's true. So what's your favorite genre in movies? What do you like?
I am more the sci-fi fan. I love the Marvel universe. I watched all the movies and was there.
Which one's your favorite?
It probably is Endgame, the one that kind of wrapped everything up. But if I had to go back, because that's kind of the culmination of everything. But I was really a fan of the first Avengers movie, just because of the everybody coming together, everybody trying to realize what they could bring to the team, and finally at the end, working together to do what they needed to do. So for me, that was probably my favorite of the series.
That's great. So that's a favorite too. The best part about Microsoft that we have discussed, but something that makes you wake up and I'm going to work today, and this is going to be the new thing that I'll be doing. So what is the most interesting part about your schedule at Microsoft?
I think that what's the most interesting part is the answer to that question changes every morning. There's always something new and interesting with the role that I have here. I talk to customers in many different industries: retail, pharma, manufacturing, media and entertainment, all kinds of different industries. And we have all kinds of different conversations as well. It's from the run-of-the-mill apps that they want to put into Azure to talking about IoT and building out IoT infrastructures inside of their environment, to talking about HoloLens. So every morning, can be a different conversation. And I think that's what keeps this job so interesting and fresh over the last 5 years that I've been doing it.
That's great. So we have a choiceful question. It's a little off track. So having fun in a disco club or going to a vacation on an island, what do you prefer?
Yeah, I'm a terrible dancer, so the disco club is not at the top of my list, but definitely the going away and having a vacation on an island would be absolutely awesome.
That's great. So anything that you want to add up to, like, summing up this session? Yeah, anything that you would want to say?
Yeah, I think that I think this has been a great opportunity. To talk to the student ambassadors and be able to just kind of share some of my experiences. I think, let me start that one over. No, I think this has been a great opportunity. I'm happy to continue the conversation. So feel free to my contact information if you have questions, or be able to answer any specific things around how I got or transitioned from one place to another. More than happy to have a dialogue outside of the video here.
That's absolutely great. Thank you so much, Rich. It's an awesome experience to have you here on board and have this conversation with you. It's really interesting and inspirational for us. And thank you so much for accepting this invite and have been here. So wrapping up this session, we'll come up with another one with another awesome guest on the list. And thank you so much for joining in. Like, share, and subscribe the stream. And see you in the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you.